Hello, welcome back to another episode of Intro to Insight. In this season, I'm talking about all of the stories that make me who I am. This is all about the core of cultivation, how I became the confident person that I am, and showing up in spaces with this bold energy, knowing who I am, knowing where I stand. And in this episode, we're going to get into how I combated social anxiety. I think in any situation, when it comes to becoming more secure within yourself and more secure when it comes to being around other people, you really have to be in this energy of willing to define who you are and really be conscious of what you're dealing with, what you're struggling with in order to combat it. And for me, I noticed in my little heart when it came to being around people, especially people that I just didn't know, when it came to public spaces, my little heart was pitter-pattering, my body was getting hot. I was getting a little nervous. It wasn't until I was put in a situation to really acknowledge how MiEleBooker was feeling individually, on her own, standing by herself. Yeah, let's just start there and let's just dive in, okay? And this is what really kickstarted my journey to enjoying my own company. So not only is this episode talking about how I deal with social anxiety, but it's also me entering the space of being comfortable enough with myself to enjoy my own company. And sometimes you don't realize that you are not comfortable with yourself until you are put in positions where you are not necessarily alone, but you're not in the space of entertaining people. Oh, hold on. I was nervous to go eat alone. I was nervous to walk alone, like to the cafeteria, because I recognized that when I was going into these spaces by myself and really just trying to show up for myself, in my head, I was still paying attention to what people were saying. That is when you're going to maybe feel, that's probably when it's going to hit you, that when you are not busy entertaining people or being entertained, that is when the thoughts of judgment kick in. That is when the fear of judgment and being perceived kick in. I remember I had got to a point where my health was being affected because I was dealing with social anxiety. I wasn't making it a habit to regularly go to the cafeteria because I wanted to avoid people. With me trying to avoid people, I realized I was also avoiding myself. I was avoiding the feelings that I felt. I'm going to be too nervous, too scared, too in my head to go take care of myself. I remember talking to a doctor, and it's crazy because he didn't even say this to my face. He didn't even say it to my face, but I overheard him talking to one of the nurses and being like, yeah, I think she has social anxiety and she's probably not eating enough because of that. And that's what's causing this brain issue, because I was feeling like a sharp pain in my brain because I was going so long with like not eating the right amount of food. And this is also the time that I had gone vegan too. And so not only was I trying to navigate veganism, but I was also not eating enough because I was avoiding people. I was avoiding people so much that I was willing to map out when the cafeteria was going to be empty, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's when I was going. And situations like that, I look back and I'm like, I didn't know at the time, but I was feeding the problem. Because instead of, and that's something that we all, we might all have a little experience with, before we learn to navigate our way through a situation, we rather like sit there and just feed the problem. This is what's helping me, but at the same time, it's also what is hindering my growth. It's also what's keeping me in the same spot. Yeah, so I got to a point where I was just feeding the problem. I'm like, okay, well, I have social anxiety. Make sure that I don't experience being in a situation where there's more people than my comfort zone enjoys. So I was going early. I was getting on the bus early to make sure that I didn't feel what I was feeling. Wasn't comfortable with who I was. I wasn't comfortable with being in a room because I'm thinking about what other people could be thinking about me. I'm thinking about how other people are judging me. When I was hearing laughter, best believe I was scared that they were talking about me. And that also has to go back to, my experience with bullying and discrimination and, my earlier school years. Usually when people hear laughter, they're like, oh my gosh, they're having a good time. I wonder what the joke is. Whole time I'm thinking, am I the joke? What did I do? What am I wearing? What's going on? They are talking about me, MiEleBooker. What did you put on today? What are you wearing? And I started beating myself up because I'm like, what is there about me that could cause all this commotion? And not even in a conceited way, obviously, but like more so in a way where I was not comfortable with myself. So at the same time where I'm like nitpicking my it's probably this they're talking about, they're probably talking about this about you, they're probably saying this about you. I'm nitpicking these things about myself, and therefore I'm believing that other people are also pulling me apart in these specific ways as well. But I had got to a point where I just had enough with myself. How long are you going to allow yourself to be uncomfortable with yourself to the point where you avoid people, you avoid showing up for yourself in these spaces? And so I had to come to my own conclusion. I was like, okay, I know where I want to be. I know that I don't want to feel this anymore. So what are we going to do about it? Not only was I like, let me handle this, but I was like, okay, I have to create my own little philosophy. I have to create my own self-perception of myself that doesn't align with the insecure parts of myself, that doesn't align with the thought that people are negatively talking about me and that's going to impact me. There's not going to be any more moments in my life where I cannot sit alone with myself, that I can enjoy my own company, because I'm afraid of what other people are thinking. You need to get this together, because not only are you a really cool person and your friends love you, you can even enjoy your own energy on your own. You have these thoughts of these other people that don't even matter impacting you, impacting your self-perception. I really wanted to take control of having more structure when it comes to my self-confidence. And in this journey of like building my self-confidence, you'll notice that there's levels to this, okay? And in this level, I was like, okay, I need to make sure the foundation of being in my own company is strong. And that's when it all started. I wasn't even thinking that large scale, like, oh, I want to be able to catwalk and, on a stage. I wasn't thinking that far. I was just like, I want to be able to eat alone and be okay. I want to be able to walk into a cafeteria and not think about what other people are thinking about me, if they even are. I remember I really wanted to focus on concrete results. I was like, okay, my goal is to not be scared to go eat alone. I want to be able to enjoy my own company. I had a few different ways that I was combating my social anxiety, but the thing that's the most important, that's really like the overall, is that I just had to be willing to show up. So I remember being like, okay, the reason why you're feeling uncomfortable walking into this room full of strangers is because you feel alone. I got comfortable with my voice and saying just simple hello, how are you? The person that was like in charge of scanning the cards when it came to, entering into the cafeteria, I became friends with them like gradually. I told myself, MiEle, I want you to say hello to 3 strangers a day. Like, I was so serious with my journey. And I remember the 3 people that I chose, I was like, the person that scans the card, I'm going to say hello, how are you to? The person that puts my food on the plate, I'm going to greet them. The person that drives the bus, I'm going to greet them. The reason why you're uncomfortable going into this space is because you don't know nobody. And that's okay. It's okay, but you can get to know people. The other thing I clocked in my head, I was like, the reason why you're going to these spaces and you're not able to enjoy your own company is because you're so focused on what these people are thinking about you. So then I was like, okay, how can you get yourself to think about something else? You're focusing on them. So I'm like, how can I change my focus? How can I put my attention elsewhere? Why am I putting my attention on these people that I don't even care about? Why am I putting my attention on these people that probably don't even care about me? How can you get your mind off of these people and put your mind onto yourself? I was like, okay, what do I enjoy? I enjoy reading a book. I enjoy listening to podcasts. And one thing about me, when it came to developing my ability to be comfortable with myself, when it came to going into these spaces, I carry a book. You're going to always carry your headphones. Your focus on what these people are saying is because your attention is on them. Energy goes where the focus is, okay? So I had to bring my energy back into myself. I had to retract my energy claws out of these people's minds, and I had to just like love on myself and, hug on myself. So I started bringing books to the cafeteria. And one thing about me, I don't care. I'll bring a book to the bar at this point. I'll bring a book to the restaurant because I'm like, this is what I enjoy in my own time. Yeah, I'm going to be comfortable outside of like my home as well. I was getting used to showing up as myself in these spaces. I was getting used to being okay with being in my, my company. And in my company, I listen to good music, okay? I read me a nice book, okay, and I get me some nice food. I was like, okay, I'm kind of scared of the cafeteria because all these people, and I was in college. So I was like, well, guess what? Now I'm going to do? I'm going to study. I'm going to do my homework in the cafeteria. I was like, I want to get used to people talking around me, so I get desensitized to it. When you hear people talking so much, you know, you hear the clamor of the strangers, you get to a point where you start drowning it out. So I wanted to get to that point for myself, because although the headphones, listening to music, it was a great way to ignore what was going on around me, it also wasn't really helping my problem. I got to a point where I was like, okay, there are going to be days where you don't go to the cafeteria, you don't go to the restaurant with your headphones in, with your music on, with your podcast on, because you need to get used to hearing what's around you. I went from going to the cafeteria at the most emptiest hours to going at the busiest hours, because I'm like, let all the people see me. Let me walk in with a whole bunch of people. Let me be okay with that. So when it comes to getting comfortable with your own company, you need to be willing to show up in spaces the same way that you show up for yourself in your solitude. For the community question for the podcast today, I would love to know, what is something that you recently started doing alone that you weren't able to do way back when? Also, what is something that you want to be able to do later on in your journey of being comfortable with yourself? For me, I am still to this day still so shocked that I went on a solo trip on a plane upstate New York. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and I went on a solo trip for a whole month. I went through this process of growing my ability to be comfortable with my own presence. To close this out, because my battery's about to die, it's really hard to show up authentically as yourself when you are focusing on how others are perceiving you and whether or not they are accepting you or rejecting you. And I want to read something from my journal to close this out. Look for the center of yourself that will take you in and give you shelter. So thank you for listening to Intro to Insight. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay with me because we're going to get into more stories later on.